Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that I want to talk about is one of your growth goals. We're going to talk about academic discourse 3.3b. You know that this is something we've worked on all year long, and it's kind of been a consensus one for all the teachers. So we've really had a chance for you to, and I appreciate the work that you did with your pods. I appreciate the work that you did kind of individually and when we come in for observations. So based on, you know, if we look at the rubric and look at the indicator for 3.3b, really where we felt you wanted to go and what you put in Bloomboard was you wanted to go from a 2 to a 3. That you wanted to really find out how to really structure your class so that you allow for these kind of conversations to happen and that justification. So the indicator says that you facilitate conversations in whole class and small group settings that require all students to consistently use the language of the discipline, discuss academic ideas, and justify their reasoning. I know that when we started, you had done really well with language of the discipline. You did a great job of using different strategies for them to talk about it, to sing about it, to do chants about it, whatever it is, to allow that. Academic ideas, you really push them to think about the higher level thinking skills. The one I know that you were working on this year was really about justifying their reasoning, that you were good at asking why and having students talk about why, but how do you make it systemic and how do you put the systems in place? Some of the things that we saw in your observations were having prompts on the table, having on the worksheets ensuring that students knew part of the sentence starters were for them to justify and ask their partner, well, tell me how you prove that. Show me where that evidence was. And we saw that many times, especially in your final observation, your showcase, you had that numerous times when we discussed that. We saw that you had numerous times to doing that in the class. How do you feel about it? Where do you feel you are now in your growth goal for academic discourse?
I definitely think at the beginning of the year I was doing kind of the ors. I would get like maybe 2 of the 3, discuss academic ideas, use the language of the discipline, but I wouldn't get to the justify. Or I would do justify and language of the discipline, but they wouldn't be discussing, they would be writing. And so I feel like with creating the systems like pulling cards and making sure each student is accountable, that I've kind of really focused and honed in on that through BITSA and all the other training I've done. I think that that's kind of been my focus, and with watching teachers and using the resources I have, I think that's been kind of the biggest growth I've had in my classroom. And I do think at the beginning of the year that was a really good place for me to start at it too, and I think I've grown in many ways that way.
And I agree. I think that it really has been something that you really put some time and effort into, and I appreciate you asking the questions and coming in and asking questions, and with your pods and the work that you did with your group, making sure that you were really pushing that conversation and asking, how do you do it in class? How can I foster more of that justifying? And like you said, hitting all of them all together and having them complement each other instead of one or not the other. So I did score you at a 3 on this one, and I think deservedly so. So congratulations, that was a really great job on your growth goal. Now, when we talk about that, as educators, as practitioners, we want to look kind of next steps. So looking at the 4, really now it's thinking about how do we move from you being the facilitator to the student being the facilitator. And you know that that's what our rubric is based on, going from teacher-centered to student-centered. And so I think when we look at creating your growth goals for next year and look at kind of strategically what you want to work on, just keeping in mind that's kind of where we're going to move with this growth goal.
Great.
Okay?